Two people get paid on the same Friday. Same city, same rent pressure, same grocery prices, same phone buzzing with subscriptions, minimum payments, delivery apps, credit card balances, transfers, and that quiet little voice that says, "I'll organize it later." By Monday, one of them has already routed money toward the next emergency, the highest rate leak, and the future version of their life. The other is not lazy. They are not stupid. They are not uniquely bad with money. Their paychecks simply entered a switchyard where someone else got to throw the levers first. That is the idea behind today's video. Every paycheck is a train. For a few minutes after it arrives, it can still be routed. It can go toward rent, food, debt, savings, investing, insurance, business assets, tax planning, or lifestyle expansion. But if you do not control the first switches, the extraction layer controls them for you. And the trap is that the right switch is not the same for everyone. A person with no emergency cash does not need the same routing move as a person with 6 months saved. A person paying 23.79% on a credit card does not need the same first move as a person deciding whether to hold 4.5% cash or invest long-term. A person at $50,000 net worth is playing a different switchyard than a person near $100,000, even if they watch the same financial advice. So this is not another "do this every time you get paid" checklist. It is a map of who controls your paycheck in the first minutes and which switch actually matters at your current tier. Most people think budgeting happens across a month, but real routing happens in the first minutes after money lands. That is when the paycheck is still whole. The train is still moving through the yard. Nothing has been split yet. Nothing has disappeared into minimum payments, late fees, shopping tabs, transfer delays, or the emotional reward of finally feeling temporarily caught up. The first routing question is simple. Before this money becomes available, where is it required to go? If the answer is wherever the month pulls it, then the month owns the switchyard. And the month is not neutral. It contains fixed bills, it contains apps designed to lower friction, it contains lenders collecting interest every day, it contains old decisions you forgot you made, it contains the pressure to look normal even when the numbers are fragile, it contains the feeling that one purchase will make the week less exhausting. That is the extraction layer.
Not one villain, not one bad company, a whole system of small rails that are already laid before your paycheck arrives. If your routing system is weak, money does not sit still. It finds the rails that already exist. That is why a paycheck can feel large on Friday and small by Tuesday. The money did not vanish. It was routed. Some of that routing was necessary. Some of it was old commitments. Some of it was frictionless spending. Some of it was interest from decisions made months ago. And some of it was simply the lack of a stronger first switch. Modern wealth starts when you stop treating the deposit as the plan. The routing is the plan. The most expensive money decision is often not a dramatic mistake. It is a vague one. I'll save what's left. I'll pay extra later. I'll invest once things calm down. I'll move it after rent clears. I'll check the statement this weekend. Vague switches almost always get thrown by someone else. A credit card at 23.79% does not wait for motivation. If a balance stays, interest starts routing future money before you ever see it. A subscription does not ask whether this is the right month. A lifestyle habit does not reevaluate your tier. A bank account does not automatically know whether your first $500 should become emergency cash, debt payoff, or investing. That is why the common advice, "just be disciplined," feels incomplete. Discipline matters, but discipline that has to redecide everything every 2 weeks is fragile. A switchyard works because the rails are installed before the train arrives. The goal is not to become a perfect person. The goal is to remove the most important decisions from the tired version of you. If payday arrives and every dollar is still negotiable, then your attention becomes the bottleneck. You have to remember the plan, you have to feel like doing the plan, you have to resist the pressure of the week. You have to compare interest rates, emergency risk, future goals, and present stress while life is already moving. That is a bad system. A better system says, the first dollars have a job before they arrive. The first tier is not about optimizing returns. It is about stopping derailments. If you are one surprise bill away from using a credit card, the first switch is not "how do I maximize yield?" It is "how do I keep this paycheck from being hijacked by the next emergency?" That matters because 37% of adults say they could not cover a $400 emergency with cash or equivalent savings, and 24% have zero emergency savings.
Those numbers are not abstract. They describe a switchyard where the emergency track is missing. When that track is missing, everything else is unstable. A car repair becomes card debt. A medical copay becomes a balance. A missed work shift becomes a fee. The next paycheck arrives already promised to the last problem. At this tier, the right switch is boring and powerful. Build the first cash buffer before pretending the system is stable. Not because cash is the highest return asset, it is not. Because cash is the rail that prevents one normal life event from sending the whole train into high-interest debt. For someone with no emergency savings, the first small automatic transfer after payday is not a nice habit, it is infrastructure. This is where a lot of financial content gets too advanced too quickly. It starts talking about optimization before the viewer has shock absorbers. It asks someone to think like an investor, while their real problem is that one flat tire can create a balance at 23.79%. Tier 0 is not glamorous, but it is the tier where a tiny routing decision can change the next 6 months. A small buffer does not make you rich. It gives the rest of the plan permission to survive. Once the derailment track exists, the next question is whether debt is quietly buying the month from you. This is where the math becomes brutal. A 4 to 5% high-yield savings account can feel productive. It is visible, it is positive, it feels like progress. But if the same person is carrying credit card debt at 20 to 28%, the switchyard leaking on a different track. A dollar earning 5% while another dollar costs 23.79% is not balance. It is a confused routing system. At this tier, the first switch is often not more investing content, more side hustle taps, or a prettier dashboard. It is directing every safe extra dollar toward the highest rate drag after the starter buffer is protected. This is where a lot of advice breaks, because the same move can be right or wrong depending on the tier. Cash can be protective at tier 0. Cash can become excessive if it allows 23.79% interest to keep running. Investing can be powerful later. Investing while toxic debt compounds against you can feel like running forward on a conveyor belt moving backward. The switchyard does not reward the move that sounds sophisticated. It rewards the move that matches the leak. And this is why the phrase, "every time you get paid," is only half the answer. Yes, do something every time you get paid, but the thing has to match the track you are actually on. If the most powerful force in your financial life is high-interest debt, then the best switch is leak removal. If the most powerful force is missing emergency cash, then the best switch is protection. If the most powerful force is lifestyle drift, then the best switch is automation. Same paycheck, different yard. After basic protection and toxic debt control, the goal changes again. Now the problem is not immediate derailment, it is drift. Drift is when a person earns more, but the paycheck still vanishes because every raise gets routed by lifestyle before the future sees it. This is the tier where payday should become boring on purpose. A fixed percent moves automatically, a retirement contribution happens before lifestyle expansion, a savings transfer fills known future expenses, a separate account catches taxes, insurance, repairs, or business costs if those apply, then the remaining money becomes the real spending number, not the paycheck, the remaining routed balance. That distinction is the whole switchyard. If you spend from the gross deposit, you are negotiating with a number that does not belong entirely to the present. If you spend from the routed balance, the future has already been paid. This is also where the system has to be honest. A budget that only works when you manually babysit it every payday is not really installed. A routing system should make the default action the right action. The money should move before lifestyle sees the full deposit. Not because lifestyle is evil. Lifestyle is part of life. But lifestyle is an excellent consumer of unassigned money. It will always find a reason to expand into empty space. So at tier 2, the goal is to stop making the future compete for leftovers. This is where the second anchor matters. Your net worth is not just a scoreboard. It tells you which financial mechanic is currently powerful enough to matter. At very low net worth, one emergency can reset months of progress. The switch is protection. When debt is expensive, interest reduction can beat most smart investing moves. The switch is leak removal. When the balance sheet stabilizes, automation and contribution rate matter more than heroic budgeting. The switch is consistency.
When assets begin to compound, allocation, taxes, concentration, and business or income quality matter more. The switch is not just saving harder, it is routing capital into the engine that fits your level. A person at $50,000 net worth, earning 7%, has roughly $3,500 a year in market growth before contributions.
A person at $100,000 has roughly $7,000 a year at the same rate. Same percentage, different dollar force. That is why the $100,000 zone often feels psychologically different. Compounding becomes visible. The asset engine starts contributing enough that your routing decisions are no longer only about survival. They are about not interrupting the engine. But the danger is copying the wrong tier. A person with no emergency fund should not imitate the optimization stack of someone with $300,000 invested. A person with expensive card debt should not act like the main issue is asset allocation. A person with stable savings and no toxic debt should not keep living in emergency mode forever. The right track changes with the map. That is the core twist. Personal finance advice often sounds universal because the words are simple: save, invest, pay debt, build credit, earn more. But the order matters. The first switch matters. The same dollar can be a safety rail, a leak repair, a compounding contribution, or an optional lifestyle upgrade depending on the tier. The mistake is not choosing the wrong goal forever. The mistake is using yesterday's correct switch after your yard has changed. The practical system is simpler than most people expect. On payday, money should meet a pre-built order. First, survival obligations. Second, the minimum cash buffer if it is missing. Third, high-interest debt above any reasonable savings yield. Fourth, automated long-term contributions. Fifth, known future expenses. Sixth, flexible spending. That order is not morally superior. It is mechanically safer for most households because it routes money away from the rails that extract the most. But the amounts depend on the tier. If the buffer is 0, the buffer gets the early switch. If the card APR is 23.79%, the debt track gets priority after a starter buffer. If debt is gone and savings is stable, the investing track must be automatic enough that lifestyle cannot negotiate with it every month. If assets are already compounding, the switchyard needs tax, concentration, business, and liquidity awareness. One map, different switches. The point is not to copy this exact list forever. The point is to stop letting each payday become a fresh debate. You want a default order that reflects your current tier, and you want the system to be strong enough that money moves before the extraction layer has a clean shot.
This can be simple. Separate accounts, automatic transfers, calendar reminders, a debt target, a contribution percent, a rule for raises, a rule for bonuses, a rule for windfalls. Nothing magical, just rails. Because if the rail is already installed, the train does not need inspiration. The switchyard works because it removes identity from the moment. You do not have to become a different person every payday. You do not have to wake up perfectly disciplined, perfectly calm, perfectly rational, and perfectly informed. You just need the first levers to already exist. That is why automatic transfers are not just convenience, they are protection against your future tired self. When payday hits after a hard week, the extraction layer is counting on frictionless spending and delayed planning. Your system should count on the same thing. It should assume you will be busy. It should assume your attention will be fragmented. It should assume you will not want to do math on Friday night. It should assume that if everything is optional, the loudest pressure wins. Then it should route the important money before the loudest pressure gets a vote. This is not a shame argument. It is the opposite. It says the problem is not that you are unusually weak. The problem is that you are human, and the system around your paycheck is already engineered to move faster than your best intentions. So build a faster system. Make the first switch automatic. Make the emergency rail visible. Make the debt rail specific. Make the investing rail boring. Make the lifestyle rail honest. Make the future less dependent on how motivated you feel this Friday. Neo's take is this. Do not ask, what should I do with my paycheck? Ask, who controls the first switch? If the first switch is controlled by bills, apps, interest, and impulse, your paycheck is being routed by the extraction layer. If the first switch is controlled by your tier map, the same paycheck can begin building stability, then escape, then assets, then optionality. That is modern wealth at the household level. Not looking rich, not copying a guru's order of operations, not chasing the most advanced tactic before the basic rail exists. Modern wealth is installing a routing system where every dollar knows which track matters most right now.
This is also why modern wealth covers both money and systems. The modern problem is not just earning, saving, or investing in isolation. It is understanding the flows, the way money moves through accounts, apps, debt, markets, businesses, taxes, AI tools, and attention. The people who understand the flows can design better defaults. The people who do not understand the flows are stuck reacting after the switch has already been thrown. The switchyard is a money lesson, but it is also a systems lesson. Control the first route, and the rest of the month has a different shape. A simple way to test your own switchyard is to look at the first hour after payday. Not the whole month, not your annual goals, just the first hour. Does any money move automatically toward protection? Does any money move automatically away from expensive interest? Does any money move automatically toward assets or future obligations? Or does the whole paycheck sit in one account, waiting for the month to negotiate with it? That first hour tells you who owns the lever. If nothing moves until you manually decide, then the system is still attention-based. If the right money moves before you think about it, the system is infrastructure-based. That is the upgrade. Not a prettier sprite sheet, not a perfect personality, a routing design that keeps working when life is ordinary, busy, and imperfect. And when your tier changes, the switchyard should change with it. The emergency track that saved you at the beginning should not become a permanent parking lot for all future money. The debt payoff track that mattered during a 23.79% leak should not keep you scared of investing forever. The investing track that grows your first $50,000 should not be interrupted every time lifestyle wants a louder signal. The $100,000 engine should not be treated like a random balance you can raid without consequence. Modern wealth is not about one magic order. It is about knowing why the order changes. The next time you get paid, do not treat the deposit like one number. Treat it like a train entering a switchyard. Before the month throws the levers for you, choose the track that fits your tier. If you have no emergency rail, build it. If high-interest debt is extracting from every future paycheck, attack it. If the system is stable, automate the asset track before lifestyle sees the full deposit. And if assets are already compounding, protect the engine instead of resetting it for short-term comfort. The paycheck is not the plan. The routing is the plan.
And the first switch decides who gets control.